Thank you very much, Mr. Donfried, and thank you very much also to the distinguished audience this evening. It's a pleasure to meet you. I know faces here, so Mr. Professor, pleasure to see you again. I prepared to elaborate on some points which are very important for us because they cover our recent history. And of course, the day of today, it's an important moment. We mark today a historical day, the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is, I will try to consider through the lenses of the times we live in now, marked by the Russia's devastating, totally unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine. First of all, thank you very much for the introduction. If I may say so, it's it's a typical diplomatic curriculum vitae that you were exposing. So I've been in the ministry, for short, I've been in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Romania since 1996. So I've seen a lot. I've seen a great deal of our diplomacy. I'm privileged to have lived through that. And of course, I'm happy to share experiences and to discuss with you also after my introduction, which I have to warn you, it won't be that short because I want to deliver a lot of information to you. So, we're mentioning the fall of the Berlin Wall and now the aggression against Ukraine. Both qualify to the description of Zeitenwende, the turning point in the European and global history. Sometimes we are witnessing such turning points and their consequences. Sometimes we are shaping them. In both postures, we bear the responsibility to make informed judgments and responsible engagements. With this in mind, I will try to underline a Romanian perspective on both events and our experience throughout the 33 years of democracy, liberty, and peace. Let me first refer to the meaning of the year 1989 with its manifold transformations in Central and Eastern Europe. Then I will try to underline key evolutions throughout the last extraordinary 33 years, opened with the fall of the wall, with the references to the main gains as well as contributions of my country to the strengthening of democracy and liberty in Europe and in the world. And finally, I will speak about the shocking moment of February 24, 2022, how it has changed our world and what should we aim for in the new circumstances. Let's take the first point, the year 1989. It is now widespread consensus of the meaning of this epochal moment, a turning point which gave room to reunification of our continent and widened the space of liberty and democracy, bringing peace and better life for the people of the continent and beyond. However, the way we have experienced this transformation in Romania has been different. Here in Germany, things went peaceful. The Berlin Wall has fallen apart and the Soviet troops from East Germany were withdrawn without shutting any fire. This made the reunification possible and the reconstruction of the Federal Republic of Germany. It has also inspired other countries in Eastern Europe in their uprising against communist regimes. This moment is the symbol of solidarity, democracy, of unity and peace. For attaining the same objectives in Romania, many people have sacrificed their lives in the revolution of December 1989. Just note that on the 9th of November, then, 33 years ago, Romania was still under the full grasp of the communist rule. Bucharest was preparing for the 14th Congress of the Romanian Communist Party that opened its proceedings on the 20th of November. And this was made in an atmosphere of strong criticism on the attempts to change the socialist system, perestroika, reunification, as you can imagine. For many in Romania, apart from maybe very few people very well informed, and I was not among them, the chance of ever breaking away with communism was close to null. Romanian revolution was then triggered by the uprising in Timișoara on the 16th of December, so actually 1 month after the fall of the Berlin Wall. and later continued in other parts of the country and culminated in an anti-totalitarian revolution in Bucharest. Our transition towards freedom and rule of law has tragically started with the loss of more than 1,000 lives, many other people being gravely injured, illegally detained and tortured. The revolution in my country has been the most violent of all the uprisings leading to the fall of the communists in countries beyond the Iron Curtain. Romanians' aspiration for democracy, freedom, and expression and liberty has been so powerful and went beyond the preservation of their own life. And this has opened the way towards a far-reaching transformation of our country and society. With their sacrifice 33 years ago, and with the experience of a communist rule more brutal than in any other country, maybe with the exception of Albania, nowadays we acknowledge and appreciate much more the value of solidarity, of unity and peace. All these are defining us as citizens, as democratic nation, irreversibly and strongly attached to the European and Euro-Atlantic values. Let me now go to the second point, the overarching transformation of Romania in the aftermath of the fall of the Iron Curtain. The revolution of 1989 has been the first step towards NATO integration and EU accession as the main drivers for an irreversible return of Romania in the European family. Since then, my country's transformation has been tremendous and broad-ranging. These incentives have shaped this three incentives have shaped this transformation: the EU membership, the NATO membership, and the strategic partnership with the US. I will refer to each one of these and share with you some assessments. First of all, the accession to the EU has been a complex endeavor. It continued to be the most complex effort to which we have embarked as a society, convinced that EU is a unique construction for peace and prosperity inside the Union and in the world. Back in the early 90s, as well as today, we thought that EU has the necessary tools to secure the progress of our country throughout cohesion and unity. Romania's road towards the EU began in February 1993 with the signing of the association agreement, and only 14 years later, in January 2007, we have become full members. All the way along, we have modernized our society, our institutions, and our public policies to bring the most advantageous results for the life of our citizens. And nowadays, we have peace, freedom, security, and justice. We have achieved sustainable development and economic growth. We have made tremendous progress in combating social exclusion and discrimination. We have enhanced economic, social, and territorial cohesion and solidarity with all other EU countries. In parallel with EU accession, we have pursued NATO integration. NATO is the main guarantor of Romanian security, and the transatlantic relationship represents the strategic link that gives coherence and consistency to alliance's action. Romania received an invitation to open the accession negotiations for NATO membership at the Prague summit in 2002, actually October 2002, meaning 20 years ago. Together with other 6 states, Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Slovakia, and Slovenia. 2 years later, my country officially became a NATO member, and since then we are a distinct voice in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, contributing to all its areas of activity. The roadmap preparing for membership meant not only the development of military capabilities, but the democratization of the entire society with clear benchmarks. During the accession process and almost 20 years of NATO membership, we have done a lot and responded in so many ways to the Allied needs. In peacekeeping missions, in hosting NATO structures or international events, in facilitating dialogue with partner countries, or restructuring our security institutions and processes. All these have been beneficial for our democratic transformation and strengthened security. And 25 years ago, Romania has signed a strategic partnership with the USA. This has been the third pillar of our democratic transformation, an efficient instrument to support domestic reforms in political, economic, military, and administrative domains, a partnership for mutual support with visible results, particularly with regard to security. As we speak, There are more than 3,000 US soldiers with up-to-date military technique in Romania. Due to the US support, Romania is today a NATO member country, and thus we enjoy the most powerful security guarantee in our history. Our strategic partnership with the US goes beyond the military domain. Recently, the military cooperation has developed tremendously. There are many US companies active in Romania, although still very few Romanian companies in the USA. Just to understand how far we are progressing in terms of economic cooperation, I will only mention a bilateral partnership agreement concluded this year to develop modular nuclear reactors in Romania, which is a new technology, and my country will build a new reactor of this type by 2027. By providing access to this high-level technology, the US institutions have acknowledged their trust towards Romania. There are also many other things that can be said about US cooperation and support for strengthening good governance and the fight against corruption in my country, or implementing high standards for the security of 5G networks. Coming to my third part of my expose, the times we are living in today, in the wake of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, which is a moment of geopolitical turmoil to which we have to find the right answers. Russia's brutal, unjustified, and unprovoked war against Ukraine has already caused extensive damage and the irrational loss of life, triggering massive displacement with consequences that will affect the Ukrainian people, and not only, for generations. It has tremendously worsened security situation in the region and in the world. It has brought back violence and military confrontation in Europe. We have been deeply moved by the atrocities in Ukraine, but also impressed by the bravery of the Ukrainian people defending their own country. Beyond the war in Ukraine, our reality is more complex and dynamic than ever, more unpredictable than ever, with overlapping crises, one along the other. The military aggression against Ukraine with all its implications, the energy crisis, the food security, climate crisis, and so on. If someone is questioning now how it was possible to resist, I believe there is a logical question, because all these shocks deeply affect the social cohesion and people's trust in democracy. So what should be our answers to these challenges? What kind of mentality do we need to be successful? Do we need a war mentality or a spirit of resistance and resilience? Romania firmly believes that there is a need to reconfirm our commitment towards consensual solutions inside our countries, within the EU and NATO, as well as in relation with our allies and partners. To remain united, determined, deeply anchored in values and symbols which are defining us as European nations, strongly linked with our allies and partners along the world. To continue to utilize the healthy roots of humanity, empathy, and solidarity that we have rediscovered in our societies, which have somehow, in a miraculous way, made possible our success at a time marked by war, violence, and displacement. In this context, what should be the future of the European project? What can we do while we are facing the greatest challenge since the EU creation? And how can we help partners further? First of all, we should close the remaining gaps. Schengen, as free movement area, is one of the greatest achievements of the European Union. Romania, already since 2011, has fulfilled the technical requirements for full membership. A political decision to take us in as full member of Schengen area would only be natural. Secondly, it is certain that we must embark on a long-term process of reforming our own societies and economies to become stronger, more diversified, and more resilient. And that means also that the EU should reduce its dependencies from Russia and other problematic partners. We have to address structural global challenges such as climate change, energy transition, or the use of new technologies. Thirdly, the EU is a successful model of development for democratic societies, able to project security and promote its values in its neighborhood. And it must be strengthened. We have to work not only for the resilience of our states and societies, but also to help partners in this regard, and I mean partners in the Western Balkans and in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Moldova, Republic of Moldova, Georgia in the first place. The unprovoked and unjustified aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine is the most significant and direct threat to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area. As a result of this, NATO has taken the most comprehensive transformation processes since its creation. What should NATO do further? NATO summit in Madrid this June has crucially transformed the alliance. The heads of state and government adopted a new strategic concept which anchored the alliance in the current security context. From Romania's point of view, it is important that the Black Sea region has been highlighted as an area of strategic significance for NATO. The eastern flank has been strengthened in a decisive way, and the Allied presence in Romania has been raised to an unprecedented level. At the end of this month, the Allied foreign ministers the meeting of the Allied foreign ministers will take place in Bucharest. We consider this a key moment in implementing the Madrid summit decisions. The worsening of the situation in the Black Sea region, which has long been used by Russia as a platform to project power in other regions, has generated important transformations at domestic level too. Romania's contribution to the shared security in this extremely difficult time is supported by civilian population. We already invested 2% GDP on defense and will raise it to 2.5% of GDP starting from next year. We host NATO's multinational battle groups established after Russia's invasion to Ukraine, as well as a key site for NATO's ballistic missiles defense system. These are concrete measures which are part of a long-term response to the new security challenges. Beyond all these measures, which are vital to defend ourselves and our allies, we have to acknowledge that the future transatlantic and global security will be more complicated and difficult, which makes it all the more important to focus on cooperation, dialogue, and respect for the rule of law and international norms and principles. I will also mention a bit of our own contribution in support of Ukraine. This support has been a broad and multidimensional endeavor, including facilitating the entry into Romania and passing through of over 2.7 million Ukrainian citizens, as well as in the field of food security by facilitating exports throughout Romania of over 6.5 million tons of Ukrainian grains and other 6.6 million other merchandises. Romania will continue to provide support on this strategic level and will take measures to improve logistic capacities for transit. We are also delivering support to Ukraine, also in energy field and also humanitarian assistance. There is a humanitarian hub in northeastern part of Romania, which also facilitates delivering of humanitarian equipment through Romania from other European countries to Ukraine. So as I said, it's really a tremendous and very complex effort to support Ukraine as much as we can in these difficult times. And it's not only limited to Ukraine, there is also large support to across the board to Republic of Moldova, which is a small country but has to deal with tremendous, incredible strains during this conflict time. What will be the role of our bilateral relations with US in the future? The last 25 years of strategic partnership with the US have deepened and enlarged the areas of cooperation between our countries. In the current security situation, Romania is confidently counting on US and NATO's Article 5 security guarantees. Our close and deep coordination with the US on issues of regional security is constant and is bearing fruits. I will also mention a bit the state of our bilateral relations with Germany, which also profited from these 33 years of opening after the fall of the Berlin Wall. This year we celebrate 30th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty on Friendly Cooperation and Partnership in Europe between the Federal Republic of Germany and Romania. Our bilateral political dialogue and cooperation in various fields is at its highest level. Both our countries are committed to further deepen bilateral relations as well as to intensify the privileged partnership of strategic nature in fostering a strong and cohesive Europe united by the values of democracy, rule of law, and respect for human rights. In April this year, our Ministers of Foreign Affairs signed a declaration on the 30th anniversary with a document which encompasses best our achievements and aspirations for the future. Together, Romania and Germany, we want to take up new opportunities resulting from the topical transformation of our economies and societies and to adapt to new challenges. Fighting climate change, overcoming the repercussions of the pandemic, and safeguarding peace, democracy, rules-based international order, stability and prosperity require joint efforts and urgent actions. To this end, we want to strengthen European resilience and contribute to a successful economic and ecological transformation, aiming at a sustainable, climate-neutral, and environmentally friendly future. Building on the successful partnership between our countries and based on our shared vision and interests, we want to cooperate even closer in ensuring a green transition and resetting our economies towards a more sustainable approach in energy as well as in fully exploiting the potential of digital transformation. We are committed to further developing the potential for sustainable growth and innovation of our economies. And with this, I would come to an end, and I hope that this attempt to draw a historical parallel between two turning points will help us better understand the true value of unity, solidarity, and democracy on our continent and also beyond it. And of course, I'm open to questions and discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And yeah, if you could stay there for now, would be great, and then we'll take some questions and comments from all of you. As always, you can raise your hand and indicate if you'd like to raise a question or comments. Okay, we're going to maybe hand the other microphone.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for the excellent overview. And on a more personal note, great to have you back in Berlin. You mentioned the necessity to reduce dependencies of what you called problematic states. What is a problematic state? Because when we look back to what you highlighted as we stand firm, transatlantic relations matter a lot in our security concept, it wasn't long ago when NATO was called obsolete by the previous American president. Is America a problematic state? And when we look at our German government these days, we travel to basically everyone who could possibly help us to fix the energy crisis, and that appears to other countries but Germany as double standard, because we speak about human rights on the one hand, but we also urgently need their energy and see what we can import. And in times of geopolitical changes, if Europe should stand up and create something like strategic autonomy, it also means that it will sign deals or compete with other global players, which then causes problematic dependencies or relationships that we used to stand away from and happily thought that a business model that is based on cheap American security, cheap Russian gas, and cheap Chinese labor will last forever. So what does it mean in practice?
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, it was an attempt to sum up in few words the world we are living in, which is more complex than just a reference in a phrase. The point of the matter is that we learned a lot, not only we in Romania, but all over Europe and in the world. We learned a lot what it means to be dependent on the sources that you mentioned, so cheap gas, cheap labor force, and so on. So we think that we learned from what happened with Russia, particularly here in Germany. And when I mean dependencies, it's probably not only the countries. It's problematic dependencies where you are dependent only on one source, no matter what. And of course, when you are depending on partners which do not share the same set of values, or at least the basic set of values which we have through the trade organization at the UN level. So there are different levels of judging our similarity with partners in the world. Of course, we can discuss a lot about declarations of one president on another, but I can quote to you a lot of problematic declarations from many presidents in this world. What counts at the end of the day is the fact that we do have a vibrant democracy, also in the countries which do not always express themselves in the best way at the level of a president, and that we share and we stand up for the commitments, the UN commitments, for the same values, for the same symbols, and this happens. So you quoted the President Trump, but we do have a very close and trustful relationship with the US, which functioned, I would say not interrupted over the years. So, and we developed also our relationship also in economic terms, and we also count to do this further. Of course, this doesn't exclude the fact that we need to strengthen our capabilities in Europe to respond and not to rely only on the US military means and support to save us whenever needed. And this means that we also have to coordinate always our responses with the US. We have to keep the dialogue open at all times and to see what serves us better together. In Romania, at least, we do believe strongly in the transatlantic partnership, and we try to take into account and to understand the concerns and the questions, the interests of the other. And we expect the same thing, and I think we do have the same thing, the mutual respect. I don't know if this goes to the full. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, thanks so much for speaking with us today. I just had a comment. I would say that energy is one of the most important elements in this conflict, and I noticed that you did speak about it at the end there. You mentioned reducing dependence on problematic states. But is Europe prepared to reduce this dependence on, say, for example, Russian gas? I would say that recent scarcity and rising prices of gas would say otherwise. I know for myself my bill has been huge, but how does this tie into Romania's fight against climate change? Because as good as sustainable energy is, I don't think it is entirely ready to support the entirety of Europe yet. So how can Europe as a continent and Romania deal with needing this energy, but not quite having the infrastructure themselves to provide energy to their own people, if that makes sense?
Thank you very much. I said also in my introduction the fact that we need to close the gaps, still existing gaps. There is an effort since long to move to renewable energy, to green energy, to go away from fossil energy sources. This process is taking place in Europe for some time. It's also financed. The reality is that we were not that successful and that quick as we should have aimed for. So we said we wanted, we had plans, but we were not that active in this respect. Now we see under the magnifying glass of the war that we need to move much quicker, and things are happening. And I see this in Germany here, with the construction of LNG terminals, which no one would have thought that they will be going to be finalized by the end of the year. I see this in my country as well. It's probably less known that we are having in Romania at least a very good energetic mix. We have had for years hydropower and also wind power very well implemented in Romania. Our dependency on gas was around 12% to 12-18%, depending on the time. When in the winter it was always higher. From dependency on the Russian gas, and now it's going towards zero. We have our own resources in the Black Sea, and it's not only supposed to make us self-sufficient, but also to help providing gas to our neighbors. And we are also, using nuclear energy. It's now at 12%, but it will also increase. So, these are at least at the national level. But further, you mentioned interconnections, and these are also important. We invested a lot in the recent years and still doing a lot of strains on gas interconnections in Europe. Electricity is another thing. We just had in March this year the connection of Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova to the European electricity network. It's functioning. It's not enough. It's not enough because they were connected to the Russian or CIS system before. But it's a lot of work in that. And also our companies, together with, for instance, the Ukrainian and Moldovan companies, are also working on improving and enlarging these electricity connections. So, we see a lot of such projects. And the fact that we are working together and we have this means of discussing on coordinating the projects also with European financing, but it's not only financing, it's also coordination in Brussels. This helps a lot. So this is why I can say it, and I said it before from Romania, that we do value the benefits and the possibilities that this working together in a coordinating way, the benefits of this process and what it brought to us. It's with all its flaws, because nothing is perfect, and we all criticize the EU and Brussels and so on. We all know this, but at the end of the day, you see that this is a much better world. We had the solidarity lines for exporting cereals from Ukraine. I can tell you because I dealt with that before. There were very few exports passing through Romania from Ukraine. They were either going to Poland or they went through the Black Sea directly to the south, not only grains, but all products. Now to have Romania exporting half of all, facilitating the export of half of the whole export of Ukrainian grains, half of it which is exported through the EU, so 6.5 million tons are exported through Romania, a similar amount or maybe a bit larger, 8 millions, exported through other routes in Europe, so either Ukraine or Lithuania, and something like 15 millions are exported through the initiative, UN initiative, the agreement signed in Istanbul. So this shows that more or less, roughly 25% of all the export of grains from Ukraine, as we speak, is going through Romania. This was not to be imagined 1 year ago. So it is a dynamic. Yeah.
I find it quite interesting that you said that most of this change, or not most, a large part of it, has happened since the beginning of the war.
Yes.
And I find it quite interesting that it seems to have accelerated so much because, it proves that we can do it. The resources have been there to do it, they just haven't been put towards making it happen.
Yes.
And now that we're in this state of emergency, it's sort of it's happening at a much faster rate than
Yes.
it would have been.
No, but this is is well known in history. Words accelerate processes. It depends how you manage them, and what kind of acceleration you leave room for. And we think we need to have this to manage this acceleration in a way which serves us to stay together as Europeans and to think and to project a better future when this is over, because it has to be over. Yeah, and it will be over when, of course, when Ukraine reinstates its territorial integrity, and then you will see the next wall falling, because we had a wall falling 33 years ago. Now we are fighting on the next wall. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. I have a question about the role of the International Criminal Court in facilitating the restoration of global order or peace in this current environment, and where your government stands on that.
Yes, we are supporting the International Criminal Court, and we are also, we work together with the court. I think I'm not quite sure. I will ask my colleague who is here. He's a lawyer himself, and he worked in this department in the ministry. So it's the same that we are going to support now with Ukraine. So to support the case of Ukraine in this process. We made our plea to support the measures and the process Ukraine is starting to bring the criminals to justice, the criminals in the Russian war in Ukraine. Now, so there is. We also made this plea in the UN, and our minister is very strong on that, and we count a lot, not only on bringing people to justice, but also on the deterrent outcome of this process and of announcing this process. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. I'm Cyril from the Philippines. I was just wondering if, since we're here in the ICD, do you think or do you suppose there is a role for cultural diplomacy in terms of bringing an end to the war, to the Russian-Ukraine conflict? And how would you foresee the role of cultural diplomacy in terms of doing this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think that what you are doing here and what is done here, the fact that that you are open to different perspectives and that you try to understand, not only to listen but also to understand the views of different diplomacies or different countries with different histories, different historic perspectives or geographic perspectives. This is of great help altogether in bringing us closer and in facilitating a dialogue. But of course, you have to be open to a dialogue. And unfortunately, in the current war that we are witnessing now, we do not see the readiness of one party to come to come to discussion, to have a meaningful, fruitful, and real discussion. Because what we see, and probably, President Putin didn't come to these courses, and unfortunately, it would have been helpful for him to hear that there are other perspectives on his policy, and that the perspective which was opened to Europe after the fall of the Berlin Wall was one of unification of the whole Europe, of win-win situation. He was not. I see cultural diplomacy as one very strong ingredient of teaching us to think and to see things in a win-win package. At least as we read now, President Putin's behavior, he's not betting on win-win. He's either or. And it's an unfortunate time we are living in. We see a lot of move from our Ukrainian friends. The fact that they are working with Europe, they want to be European members. So they are open to bring in their country new values, new ways, new procedures, which would make their life better for their people. So they are open for this dialogue. We do not see this openness in Kremlin, not yet. but hope for it. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question also regarding cultural diplomacy. Where are we in the timeline of the evolution of cultural diplomacy in Romania? In 2004, kind of all of a sudden, Romania decided to start the Romanian Cultural Institute. Before it was practicing cultural diplomacy, but now for the first time there is a separate institution, as far as I know, linked to the foreign ministry, doing cultural diplomacy. Is this just the beginning? Is Romania just getting going now? Or how important is cultural diplomacy in the overall foreign policy? Germany, for example, they have a bigger budget in the foreign ministry for culture and communication than for politics and economics. How would it compare in Romania, and can we expect also more cultural diplomacy? Will it continue to grow? My own country, the USA, unfortunately, it's declining since the end of the Cold War. But what are the prospects for Romania?
Yes, it's it's one thing to have. It's true. It's one thing to have cultural events or a cultural presence, and there is another thing to have cultural diplomacy. We do have the means for cultural diplomacy. You mentioned Cultural Institute, and this is rightfully so. What we do not yet do properly is to bundle all these cultural initiatives which are developing and growing. The Cultural Institute should be probably better entrusted and better equipped to to merge and to put together, to display together in a way which would be more powerful also for our own diplomacy. All these initiatives which are happening in the cultural area. From my own experience, I can say that Romania is culturally more present in Germany than it was 6 years before when I left Berlin. We see through films festivals where Romania is invited, musical events, you name it. But what we did not yet achieve is through our own policy to put all these beautiful things together and to say, to put a label on them and to say, they represent us. So we should, from the institutional side, I know, and we should do more, to link what is happening with diplomacy and to represent ourselves, to put our brand on it. It's like you say it in Germany, you said made in Germany, everyone knows what is it. This culture which is present here, and I was, 2 weeks ago, I was giving a medal, a decoration awarded by our president to the conductor Cristian Măcelaru in Köln, which is a personality also in the US and also here in Germany. And it was, of course, for me a real pleasure to, to say he is Romanian. But we have to do more of that. To put it in the proper light, the fact that the cultural strength that we have, and this is again part of it is a part of diplomacy, quite a lot so, because it gives you the best perspective of a country. But also in other things, we are not probably institutionally we were not the best in administrating the offer that we have. But it happens. So the offer is there. There are a lot of good things, but we were not that far successful in administrating the offer. We'll do so.
The main opportunity
Work
that
on it.
I've seen, because we've worked a lot with Romania with our academy, is really to create the opportunity for people to discover Romania. When we first started the academy, our very first partner was the University of Babeș-Bolyai in Cluj, a smaller town, obviously a college town in Transylvania. Not many know outside of Romania. And I still remember the students came to Berlin for the first semester, everything went fine. But as it was getting towards the end of the semester and they wanted to go to Romania, suddenly, Mark, we don't want to go to Romania, and this and that, and corruption, and Dracula, and this and that, all those sort of the stereotypes. And it was getting to be a problem because it was sort of at the end of the semester and they had to go. So President Stănescu came, the rector of the university came, we had sort of a workshop with them, explained that we convinced them to go. They went there. I visited them about 1 or 2 months later in Cluj, and they were the best, marketing agency for Cluj. We love it. Everyone speaks English here. It's wonderful. Cafes, this and that, etc. And they really fell in love with Romania and Cluj. So I immediately took Esteban. I think my other colleague Elvira was there. We video recorded everything, and we made a video, which I think is still on our homepage, I think that's powerful nation branding, really, where you have an Irish, an American, African, really students from all over the world telling their own stories about what it was like to discover Romania. And I think that's the trick, to try to create those opportunities, and as you said, put it on the web pages so that people actually see it.
No, it's one thing which was there with us, so it's just happening. It's our experience, and we did that for long. So we are that keen and that much concentrated on doing things, but not that much on marketing them. So we are not that good at marketing, but this is coming as well. And part of marketing, Timișoara, the starting point of the revolution will be next year, the European capital of culture, and the European cultural capital, 2023, and it's really, it's really worth seeing, particularly in this year, but not only. Is the second cultural capital of Europe after Sibiu, Hermannstadt in 2007 when we joined the EU. And also from my own experience, I can tell you that Sibiu was, it was great in 2007, but now it multiplied by 10. It's just, you see crowds of people in the street all the summer. It's marvelous. It's everything is happening. Summer is happening. It's always happening something in a cultural area. We have theater festival, film festival. We have countless of music events and exhibitions. So it's really thriving. And Timișoara is also on its way to become the same thriving cultural capital. And of course, you mentioned Cluj, which was capital of youth, or youth capital of Europe. Bucharest was not yet, but Bucharest is thriving as well. So I can do a lot of advertising, but just on this moment. Otherwise, agree with you, we were not the best to advertise ourselves. But there are many friends coming, and they speak for us.
No, I wasn't saying you weren't doing good advertising. In many ways, you're doing better, right? Focus on the work itself, get the results, and do the marketing later, which is actually better than the opposite. Really good marketing, but don't deliver the results. But anyway, as I said, we would be very happy also to work together with you in the embassy to continue the tradition, which began many years ago with excellent cooperation with Romania, and also to try to be creative in terms of create more bridges between Romania and Germany.
Thank you very much. I know that you have lecturers here. You have also our former president, Constantinescu, which is a symbol by himself. So open to do things together further on and enjoy the discussion.
Are there other questions or comments for the study? Yes, two. Okay, please.
I just wanted to ask your personal opinion. It also ties into what Mark was saying. You mentioned that cultural diplomacy can help end conflict, but you have to be open to dialogue, right? And that the parties involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict are not open to this dialogue. However, you say that citizens of Russia and Ukraine are, especially the younger generation, I think, are especially open to this kind of dialogue. How can we make sure that these people that want this open dialogue have access to it? I mean, I see companies like Facebook pulling their services out of Russia, and this is a major form of communication to the citizens of Russia. It's also a source of information for people to find out about these intercultural events that you're discussing. Or, I'm not sure if, for example, the ICD website's available, but I've noticed that lots of websites that are encouraging this kind of thing are being blocked. So these people in these countries can't actually access this information. And I was just wondering, on your personal opinion on how we might fix this.
Yeah. So there is no easy solution. That is that much that you can do. In Romania, we listened to Radio Free Europe, for instance, when before the fall of communism then, and it influences the minds of many people. Now there are a lot of efforts to have broadcast offered in Russian, also to transmit through satellites or internet. Of course, you see the blockage. The Russia tried to install, or at least Putin tried to install their own internet world. It did not really function. There are some ways that information reaches the people on the ground, but it's not 100% accurate or covering the whole country. As I said, it's as much as you can do. That much that you can do. It's not, you cannot find an easy solution and say this will work. It's a pill, and it's a drug. It will work, and tomorrow the war will end. For us to end the Cold War and to get rid of communism, it took more than 40 years. So it's I'm not saying that this war will last other 40 years. We don't want that. But we have to be prepared for some strains in this time.
Facebook
Yeah.
Does Romania have any companies operating in Russia at the moment?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that's one we want to ask you.
Yes, and it's not the environment we will want.
Like H&M and stuff, like,
Yeah.
McDonald's are pulling out, like,
Yeah.
I feel like that just makes cultural diplomacy, a lot harder.
Yes, it is hard, and as I said, from our own experience, it was like this. Just imagine 40 years. Yeah.
Okay. And final question on this format, and then if Your Excellency, if you'd agree, we have a tradition at ICD where we have the students conduct a brief interview with you afterwards. So if you have another 5 minutes, we'd love just outside, we have a little interview area there, a few more questions where the students are in control.
I don't know how late is it.
Okay, final question on this one. Okay.
Okay, so it's
Go ahead.
My question is a little bit related to also what she commented about. She mentioned Facebook and access to information. And my question, we are living in an age where information has been utilized as a tool for projecting certain messages. Russia released their propagandistic commercial about moving into Russia, where they released it through their embassies. And in the case of the Philippines, TikTok was used to disseminate fake news, false information about the dictatorship. And I can relate to the fall of the wall because in 1986, we had our own people power revolution in the Philippines. And now the son of the former dictator is back as the president because he won through the use of these communication tools and fake news, disinformation. So my question is, how can we, at least maybe in the experience of Romania as well, how can we make sure that we protect the freedom of speech, at the same time safeguard our citizens against disinformation and the use of public relations as a tool for propaganda or for these kinds of things?
It comes with education. And of course, media education, which is done also here in Germany and in many countries, and also the facts that you are doing here. Because you have to think with your own mind. It doesn't matter if you have access to Facebook in Russia, if you have whatever, propaganda and false information delivered through Facebook, or the other way around. So you have to use your own brains and your own understanding on the facts. It's something that starts with the early ages. We were also trained in the pre-digital era, not to believe in whatever was told to us. So this goes all over all over the way. We have to train ourselves. We have to train our minds to question twice and not to believe in fabricated information. But this is a long process. As I said, it's democracy, it's dialogue. Nothing is simple. It's always costly. It takes time and effort, but it's worth. For those who lived through dictatorship, you know what it's worth. Yeah.
But it's also interesting because the education system, for example, in the Philippines, is going down. The ratings, literacy rates, and everything. That's why I think a lot of our fellow citizens are vulnerable to. They get their information from these social media platforms nowadays instead of from schools, from academic institutions. So I was just curious because you mentioned also in earlier in your speech that Romania was one of the most violent in terms of the post-Soviet.
Yes, because the control was so
yeah.
tight. Yes.
So maybe there's just a parallelism that we can see through
Mhm.
33 years after, how education is built. But thank you for your comment.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you too.
Express our sincere gratitude.